Well, the reason they're talking about inflation or deflation is because way back when I was in the 70s, a true capitalist would let a business fail. Okay, understand that capitalism, according to Schumpeter, is that capitalism destroys inefficient companies. So if you suck, the capitalism wipe you out. You're out of business. So you look at one not too long ago, there was Blockbuster Video, then Netflix came along and they're toast. They're just gone. And so a lot of true capitalists wipes out the inefficient or the obsolete. But for the last so many years, since 1907, really, they've been saving the banks. So the banks are so corrupt, and the reason the Federal Reserve had to come in was to protect the rich bankers. And what they did was back in 2008, there was quantitative easing, which is a very complex subject. But basically, the Fed just prints money and gives it to banks, okay, to prevent them from failing. So that's not capitalism, that's Marxism, that's socialism, that's communism. It's called central banks. But since most of our school teachers are communists anyway, they don't know the difference. So they can't teach kids that. So what happened in 1971, President Nixon then took the dollar off the gold standard. And so that they could print as much money as they wanted to. And in 1972, I was flying behind enemy lines as a Marine pilot, and I went to look for gold. So this here is gold. This is God's money. Gold and silver are God's money. They're parts of the periodic table of elements. So there's really, I think this is 47 and gold and silver 74 or something, but I flunked chemistry also. But this is real money. And this here is a Zimbabwe dollar. And this is $10 billion. This may as well be the US dollar. So what the Fed is trying to do is print tons of debt, like I think 10 trillion this year, to prevent the banks from failing. So they need inflation because they want to pay back the debt with Zimbabwe dollars. Just think about that. So they can inflate the debt, print 10 trillion, and they print, here's a $10 billion. This might have bought you an egg when it was good, a boiled egg. So they could pay off the debt with fake money. That's where I wrote the book Fake and all this stuff. So anyway, the reason inflation is going to wipe out people is because the average person is a consumer. So everybody talks about, I want to, T-bone steak is this now, and gasoline's this, and toilet paper's that, and all this. But that's because Biden and company and the Fed are protecting the bankers. And so we just had John McGregor on board here. Everything's to protect the bankers. So that's why I feel for the working class people. I think it's criminal that our school system is part of Marxism. There's no financial education in schools, and it's not a mistake. So I've been saying this since, my first book was, if you want rich and happy, don't go to school. This was long before Rich Dad Poor Dad. But today we can see what's happening. And people are still saying, oh, it's because the container ships aren't being discharged in Long Beach Harbor and all that. And I went to school. I can drive those ships. I have a third mate's license to drive ships and fly planes. But anyway, it's all BS. So the people who are complaining about inflation, just know it's because the Federal Reserve Bank, the US Treasury, which is Janet Yellen, who was also head of the Federal Reserve Bank, they're as corrupt as they come. They're communists. They're frickin' communists, and we worship them. This is what's sad.
I have a question on that. Yesterday, I was scrolling and I saw this thing that says the Federal Reserve hired BlackRock, which manages $7 trillion in assets, to run a portion of their quantitative easing program. This person says it's a glaring conflict of interest. Not only is BlackRock paid $8 million per year to run this scam, but BlackRock could buy its own bonds out. Could you talk? Do you know what that's about? Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, just understand it goes to this word called collateral or security. You see, this is gold. This is real security. It's God's money. So is silver, and so is Bitcoin due to the blockchain technology. I'm not saying buy any of this stuff. I'm just telling you why I own this. So this is real money. I mean, I can travel anywhere in the world. Its value goes up and down as it's manipulated, and I can spend it. But what this is, the Zimbabwe dollar, is fake money. And the only way this comes into existence is an entrepreneur like me creates an asset. You know, Rich Dad Poor Dad is about assets versus liabilities. So I go into BlackRock and I say, guess what? I have a startup here. You know, I mean, Tesla or something. And Tesla is now $1 trillion company. But what happens if GM, and you know, Biden doesn't like Tesla, I can tell, but he doesn't recommend them. I'm not in the game. I'm not in that dogfight. But let's say that GM comes out with an electric car that you can buy for $2. Tesla's toast. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so much of the stock market is based upon the valuation of a company like Tesla, or like the earlier thing, you know, Netflix or Blockbuster Video. So much of it is you don't know what's called the counterparty to it. The only counterparty to this is God. God made this. And silver, God made this. And the Bitcoin is blockchain. That's what gives, you know, Ethereum and blockchain. So some people ask me, I'm Satoshi. I said, no, I don't speak Japanese. But I don't know anything about blockchain, but I just don't trust this. I don't trust the US dollar. I don't trust the Fed. I don't trust the Treasury. And I don't trust our government. And I don't trust Wall Street. If you do, invest your ass off. But what they're doing is they're creating what I call a fake asset.
Yeah.
So let's say I go there and say, you know, Sarah, I'm starting this company. And I've been there. They hype the company. Oh, this is, yeah. And so really the issue is trust today. This thing here is in God we trust. There's no counterparty risk to it. But there's a lot of counterparty risk to this. And there's a lot of counterparty risk to BlackRock, to the stock market and all this. So that's why, you know, I have John McGregor here, because that's what he does. He evaluates how stable is that business they're floating. Like Tesla is now $1 trillion company. Is it worth $1 trillion? I really don't know. But at the last EV conference, Tesla wasn't invited. Ford and GM were.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't smell a rat with that one.
Well, that made me think of something. I've heard Andy Tanner talk about obsolescence risk,
Yeah.
where Tesla we've seen as like the gold standard for innovation technology in the green market. But really, they're in my mind, they're at the most at risk because all of these other companies are developing, you know, they're trying to chase them. And so could Tesla be the next big blockbuster? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but there is that risk, right?
That's a legitimate question. I guess this guy named Schumpeter, I don't know when he was cruising around, but he always said capitalism is a destruction of the weak. And as you know, I mean, we at Rich Dad and our advisors always studying, you know, these YouTube videos. Today, you cannot destroy a weak company. It's all BS. You know, you got to be so politically correct. So I have tremendous respect for Elon Musk. You know, I don't drive a Tesla. I mean, I drive the loudest car possible, a Ferrari 458. And this is how sick I am. There's a Ferrari 458 and a 488. The reason I bought the 458 because it makes more noise. and all the environmentalists hate me. Well, you know, fly Southwest then. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
It's so politically stupid. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So this here, the reason there's no counterparty risk. This is an element. I forget the number. Silver is an element, and Bitcoin is blockchain. There's no counterparty risk. This is a Zim dollar. It's no difference than a US dollar or a US stock or a US bond. And so that's why you don't find me saving dollars. I save gold, silver, Bitcoin. And it could change. You know, I mean, Bitcoin could become obsolete also. But the reason I listen to guys like Anthony Pompliano and all the smart young guys is they'll give me early warning if something's going to come up. So you got to pay attention to what YouTube is saying if they don't take them down. That they took George Gammon down. But ladies and gentlemen, you've really got to be smarter today. And that's why the Rich Dad Company was founded. We don't sell stocks or bonds or mutual funds or gold. We just sell awareness, be aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. One more thing about this fake billion. I mean, what is it? Toilet paper is worth more than this, but
I have more confidence in my toilet paper, I'll tell you.
yeah, it's more use. And but let me tell you, I say this often when I looked up how much is a trillion. If you spent $1 a minute, it would take you 32,000 years to spend $1 trillion. 32,000 years. It takes them 1 minute to print $1 trillion. So they're coming up with this infrastructure problem and all this. And this is what we study at Rich Dad. It used to be if you printed, let's say, $1 million, the GDP rose by 1,000,010. Today, you print $1 million, the GDP only comes up by 7. In other words, we're going further and further in debt. We cannot pay off the debt. And so what they're doing to print more money, hoping to pay off that debt, it just makes the debt bigger, and this piece of toilet paper worth less. So that's where Rich Dad is around. That's why we have all these guys. We sound like pessimists, but I'd rather own this little piece of metal here. Look at this. This is what it comes in. It's called a sleeve.
So how many are in a sleeve?
Huh?
How many come in a sleeve?
They come in this?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is 20 gold coins.
Oh, okay.
This is approximately $40,000 worth. I'm happier running around with this than how much is this? 10 billion Zimbabwe. All right, so we just want to get people to think and then study. And there's a lot of good information on YouTube and things like this, and just choose one that's best for you. But just remember, I'm coming out with my latest book. It's called The Capitalist Manifesto, and it goes into this. It's how our school system is Marxist. They're communists. My family are Marxist. They don't know it. They're good people, but they believe in giving people fish. I believe in teaching people to fish. And the other thing is the Fed is Marxist. So if you understand how communism has infiltrated America, that's why I wrote the Capitalist Manifesto. You can be a communist if you want. You can be a Marxist if you want. Your choice. You can wear a mask if you want. But what I don't like is when you get fired if you don't take the jab. That's fascism. And that's what I fight against. You don't want to take the jab. I think it's criminal that they fire you. Mm-hmm. That's not capitalism. That's fascism. That's Adolf Hitler, Mussolini time. And that's why Rich Dad was founded, way back when, before it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. My first book is If you want to be rich and happy, don't go to school, because most school teachers are Marxists. They just don't know it. They believe in giving people fish rather than teaching people to fish. So we at Rich Dad teach. That's why I have guys like John McGregor and all the other advisors, Kenny McElroy. We teach. We don't tell people what to do.
Yeah. So that leads me, and we don't have to go into it because we pretty much covered it, but one of your probably the most popular tweet was the I love Bitcoin because I do not trust the Fed, Treasury, or Wall Street. It had 40,000 likes. That's,
yeah,
I think probably one, but it's that same principle, right?
Correct. It's when if you want to speak macroeconomics, you always ask who's the counterparty. So in other words, when I borrowed money when I first started out, nobody would lend me money because they don't trust me.
Because who are you?
Yeah, as credibility got up, and I lost a lot of money at the start. Kim and I went broke and all this stuff. But each mistake we made, we got smarter. We met smarter team members, like our Rich Dad team right now. We've met a lot of crooks, like our first CEO, our second CEO, and our third CEO who we've met. They're all crooks. They cheat, they lie, they steal. I can't believe it. So Kim and I were in horrible shape because, the first people were, oh, we love Rich Dad. And they were stealing as much as they could. Holy mackerel. But that's how you meet, the lesson we teach is that every time you meet a bad partner, you meet a good partner. So most of our best partners today came from bad partners. So you got to be very, very careful, because my new book's coming out. It's called The Capitalist Manifesto. But the terminology is this: who is the counterparty to this gold coin? God. And who is the counterparty to this? The government. Who do you trust? Who's the counterparty to Bitcoin? Blockchain. It's people's money. I trust the people more than the government. And that's why I support Bitcoin. Could I be wrong? Possibly, but that's why I listen to YouTube, even though they take me down all the time. But some of these guys, like I said, Michael Saylor and Pompliano and all this, they'll send out the warning if something's wrong. That's all I can ask. But also the thing is, you always want to buy low. And I was talking to John about the party I went to. These people were talking about real estate. And I just had to tell them, I really cannot endorse what you're doing. You're buying real estate at the top of a market. Yes, but real estate always goes up. I said, maybe. But if it comes down, the trouble with real estate is it's illiquid. This gold here is as liquid as they come. I can go anywhere in the world and somebody will give me money for it. Anywhere. But real estate, no. S&P 500 is liquid. This is liquid. And so is cash liquid. It's called financial literacy. What's the vocabulary of money? So one vocabulary word today is counterparty risk. Who is the counterparty risk on this gold US Eagle? God, not the US government. Who is the counterparty on the Zimbabwe dollar? Crooks. And that's the Rich Dad lesson on tweets. Thank you, Sarah. You're the best.
Thanks, Robert.
của con, yêu yêu chưa hẹn mùa lụt nước lũ bắt